Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning and welcome to the show. Today is Wednesday, the 8th of 2020, and Wednesday, the 8th of April, 2020. Listen, guys, I went out and I took a drink of sweet juice about an hour ago, out of a bottle, and I got on cam just now, and I noticed I said, I got a mustache! you know? So instead of going and wiping it off with a wet wipe or whatever, I just left it on there. I thought it was funny. And we all need a good laugh after what's going on lately, Anyway, listen, guys, I want to talk about silver. And here's the thing. In order to really get to the nitty-gritty of what's going to happen with silver, I'm going to have to talk about this virus a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit, because it's what's going to impinge upon the price of it. It's like the big elephant in the room, so we can't avoid that subject. But here's the thing: we are approaching peak virus in the world right now, and I'm going to explain to you in detail how this is going to affect the price of silver. I would say we're about 40% of the way through this virus thing. Okay? So each month we're moving about 10% into this virus thing. And in other words, right now it's still getting worse in the world. And it's going to get worse as countries start to lift lockdowns. And this is the next phase of this. And we went through the initial shock phase, shock and awe of all these countries going on lockdown. And the adverse effect it's had on the economies. It's been absolutely tremendous. Considering we're about 40% of the way through, in another month we'd be 50%. We'd be at the worst part of the whole thing. That's when the crisis is at its deepest. That's when it's taken the most toll on human life. That's when it's at the 50% mark. But what happens next is we start to move toward the end of it. 60%, 70%, 80% through it. When we get to about 60 or 70% of the way through this thing, we're at 40% now, which would be about 3 months from now, the world is going to start to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And we're going to see an improvement in almost everything. Well, we're not going to come out of this thing overnight, immediately. It's not how it's going to work. We made a steep decline in the world economy that would be the recovery that they talk about is a V-shaped recovery because of the steep decline that we went into, and they talk about a recovery in a V-shape where we'll come out of it just as fast. I'm sorry for you people out there in the stock market that are hoping for a V-shaped recovery. It's not coming. We're not going to come out of this thing as fast as we went into it. The angle of decline, the recovery is not going to be at the same angle of decline. So if the angle of decline is like, say everything slid down 90% or 90-degree angle, we're only going to come out at about an 11-degree angle. In other words, we're not going to recover as fast as everything slid, and it's going to take a long time to actually recover. Imbalances in the system that needed to be taken care of. In other words, things like over-leverage in the system is still there, and it's still being over-leveraged even more. So where is this hyperinflation? Because, hyperinflation is what would really drive gold and silver to the moon and cryptocurrencies. Where is it? And where has it been all these years? Well, in an environment, of a deflationary environment, when you got prices declining, you got workers being laid off, you've got workers losing their jobs, and you've got the people basically all being closed in. This creates deflation, tremendous deflation. And the Fed, they've been fighting this deflation. But on the other side of this, when we start to see light on at the end of the tunnel, as we start to move past the 50% mark in this crisis, and the economy starts to bounce back a little bit, not as quick as we lost the economy, but it starts to slowly creep upwards and bounce back a little bit. You know, uh, what we're going to see is consumers are going to need almost everything that they've been out of, right down to toilet paper. A person might need a new toothbrush, or a person might need, and there's going to be actually big purchases too. Factories are going to need to retool, and there's just, the list goes on and on and on of the things that the world is going to need. At the same time we need all these things, there's going to be short supplies because we haven't been producing anything. For the longest time, we've been basically held up at home. Factories have closed. Everything that's not non-essential has basically closed down in the entire world economy. And so everything is going to go into short supply. Well, what do we got? We got central banks on the other side of this, creating money like it's going out of style, you know, and pumping it into their respective economies to try to keep the world going. So on one side, we got the Federal Reserve printing money like it's going out of style, and on the other side of that, we got a shortage of supply, and then the economy is going to start to pick up. Once we start to move past the 60 or 70% of the way through this virus, and we start to actually see a decline in new cases big time around the world, we're going to be left with a very, very sick economy, but starting to improve. Businesses will start opening up again at a certain point when we're about after the lockdowns have been lifted, and we're about 70% of the way through this virus. You're going to see things like restaurants starting to open back up again, but a lot of restaurants went out of business. So new restaurants will open. They'll hire people. They'll be looking to hire people. They'll need everything. They might need a big stove for their kitchen, or tables or whatever. And then you're going to see other businesses start to open up, new businesses. So you're going to see a little bit of a revival in an enormous economy that's been basically killed or destroyed. But the people are still there. The infrastructure is still there. So you're going to see a little bit of a bounce back, but it's not going to be near the speed. So we're not going to get back to our old highs, is basically what I'm saying. But on the other side of this, you've got all this new money created that's going to be chasing goods and services. So you're going to see tremendous increases in price. And you're going to start to see an uptick in the economy again. What this is going to mean is that the velocity of money around the world is going to start to go back up again. And that's when we're going to start to see inflation, big time. Inflation. Well, inflation, has a effect on gold and silver. People look ahead. They say, I need to hedge against inflation. Right now, they're buying gold and silver out of a panic mood. But when people start to hedge against inflation, they buy gold and silver even more. It's a hedge against inflation, as a hedge against the inflation that's eating away the purchasing power of their fiat currencies around the world. When that effect happens, now we're 40% of the way through the virus. Each month represents about 10%. So we're looking at 50% in a month from now. 2 months from now, we're looking at 60%. 3 months from now, or 90 days from now, which is not long, guys, you're going to be looking at the light at the end of the tunnel in just 90 days from now. And that's when you're going to start to see the economy start to pull out. People will start going back to work. But at the same time, we still got all this stimulus that's going to be being pumped into the system. And the Fed cannot pull back on that once this recovery starts, because if they do, there'll be an economic crash like you've never seen before. And they know this. So they're going to have to keep pumping that money in. all that funny money. You're going to see a tremendous demand because you're only going to see the price of gold and silver going up during that period in time. But demand is going to be increased even more than it is now for gold and silver. Well, what do you got going on? You've got all these mines still out of commission. Now, you got to think about the lag. There's a lag effect here. The mines are out of commission right now. And they're not producing any gold and silver for the market, especially silver. It's such a tight market. Okay? So you're going to see demand increase into this period in time because the price is going up. People are going to want to have some as a hedge against inflation. There's going to be none available. There's going to be like a lot of panic buying. At the same time, the miners aren't producing anything. We have to have gold and silver for especially silver. Silver, guys. We have to have it for industry. Industry's going to start going again because everybody's going to need everything once the economic recovery starts. And even though it's not going to be a significant economic recovery, it's still going to be a recovery from what we were. The shortage of silver is going to continue, and it's going to get worse during that period in time. Demand is going to go up, but there's going to be a lag on production. And even if the miners do get going again, there's going to be that period where we didn't produce any silver. No silver's come out of the ground or anything. That has lasted for months, and production will probably be slow to come back online. Well, you can't make a cell phone without silver. You can't make any electronics without silver. There's going to be tremendous demand for electronics. Can you imagine how many people are going to this crisis is going to end and their TVs? The TVs are designed to break. It's called planned obsolescence. The factories do this. They'll put a transistor inside your television that's only designed to last about a year. When that transistor goes pop, well, nobody takes their TVs into repair anymore. Not like they used to back when I was a kid. Used to repair all the TVs because they were so expensive. TV repairman was a big job back then. It's not anymore. There is no such thing as a TV repairman. And so planned obsolescence, when they put that little transistor in your television or in your cell phone or in whatever, not so much cell phones, but in all these electronic products, your stereo, whatever, they go pop. People are going to want TVs. They've had a steady supply coming from China of these, let's call them disposable televisions. Suddenly that supply is cut off, and they're going to want to make new ones over in China. They're going to need silver to solder those circuit boards. Going to need silver to make those new solar panels. Going to need silver to make all the new cell phones, the new latest models for everybody. Inventory is going to be very, very strained because when industry starts to pick up again, and at the same time you get all these people out there who are buying coin and bars, like it's going out of style. And prices are surging on everything else that you buy because the Fed's printing money like crazy and just dumping it into the system. This is a cocktail that's going to drive the price of silver up more than gold. Silver's going to move up better and faster than gold because there's more of a shortage coming. And so we're not going to be talking so much premiums because I think that the paper size of silver is going to explode higher during this period in time. At the same time, we're going to see a very slow increase, and there are going to be people going back to work, finding new jobs, and a lot of people are going to have continued support by the government. So we're going to start the recovery. We're going to start getting over this crisis. Each month, we're going to move 10% further toward the end of this crisis. So you can figure right now, We are in April. We're at 40%. May, 50%. June, 60%. July, 70%. August, 80%. So we'd be 80% out of it by August, if I'm figuring right. September, 90%. So we'd be almost done with this. This will almost be in the rearview mirror by that point, in time. And we're not going to make a V-shaped recovery, though. For you guys out there who think we're going to make a V-shaped recovery, it's not. It's going to take us a lot longer to recover from this. But gold and silver are going to be a really good investment. Cryptocurrency all the way through. Once this recovery starts, cryptocurrency is going to catch a bid too. But the old highs our economy was at before this crisis occurred. It's going to take us a long time to dig out of this hole, that we're in. It's going to take a long time, and the excesses are still in the system, so we're actually heading toward another crisis that could actually be bigger than this crisis. Because all they've really done with this crisis is just like the 2008 crisis, where they forestalled an enormous economic disaster in 2008. All they've done now is even leverage the system up even higher. And there's getting to be a bigger and bigger spread between Wall Street and Main Street. And the poor are getting poorer and the rich are getting richer. And we're actually heading toward a crisis that's going to be bigger than anything in the future. A few years, it may be a year or 2 or 3 years out, but it's going to be a hyperinflationary depression coming. After this is over, it's not going to be caused by this. That's going to make this pale in comparison, as to a disaster. It's going to be an ultimate disaster. The hyperinflationary depression is coming. It's going to take the dollar to zero. This because they've just re-leveraged the system even higher. It's a Ponzi scheme. You cannot keep going with a Ponzi scheme. Ultimately, it'll fail in the end. Ultimately, the dollar will go to zero, and all the other fiat currencies will go to zero, and that'll be the biggest disaster of all, because that has the potential, and it might be a few years out, but that has the potential to seize up the entire mechanism that feeds all of us, ultimately, and move us into a system where hard money and hard assets are the only real things of value. Thank you guys for listening, and looking at silver and gold in the long term and cryptocurrencies in the long term, like when this final crisis comes, the sky's the limit to how much they can be worth, because ultimately in the end, there'll be a transfer of wealth that's unimaginable over into gold, silver, and cryptos. You guys have a great day. I hope you liked my little mustache. I thought it was funny. That's why I left it on here. And we'll catch you guys in the next show. Bye-bye.